Hello, everyone. We are back. It's Tuesday afternoon in London, Tuesday midday in New York, where Andrea Miliotti is joining us from. And it must be a late morning for Deborah in Austin, Texas. Hello, everyone. Hello, ladies. And let's chat today about ADHD and support groups. We've got Andrea here, who's been recently diagnosed with ADHD, and her son was diagnosed when he was 7, I believe. So we would like to let Andrea introduce herself and tell us a bit about her experience with ADHD, and then Deborah and I will ask some more questions. So Andrea, tell us briefly what about your story? What were the circumstances that you decided to be assessed for the ADHD?
Yeah, thank you, Monica, Deborah. I basically I took myself. I did a self-assessment because being that I did have a son that was diagnosed with at age 7, and I just all of a sudden I just got to look, and I think it was a lot of research and a lot of courses I've been taking and learning more, and I said to myself, looking at my life, looking at so much, I just had this feeling inside me. I just had something. So I did a self assessment and it just pointed to what I thought. And then I took it myself. I made an appointment. I got a psychiatrist. I went there. I showed them what I took and we talked and they confirmed it with me and it just totally made sense. And I actually got a medicine myself, which I'm on, and thank God because it helps. I still sometimes I feel like I have my routine. I'm like very good about managing, and like everything is like I have to manage my time because I was always. Well, that's the thing. I would literally make an appointment and forget it like that. I like forget it like it was nothing. How many times like that? And I have to learn, and I'm kind of old fashioned in the way I like everything is the appointments with the phone, which is good. I'm trying to use, but I prefer an appointment book than to write it down and highlight everything. That's the way I can work. So so basically that was me. That was how I found out. And
So no, I was gonna say paper is so important to me. Like a lot of the things that you're saying, I'm like, yep, check, 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 check. And so, yeah, that's, I agree so much. And I just recently even made a plan and it, it was like the very next day and I completely
yeah.
forgot about it. So I can very, very much relate to that. Just very much. So I'm very interested and I want to kind of jump right in on, how did that lead you? And it was just such a short time ago. How did that lead you to where you are now? Because I know you have like a support group. I know that also like, I think we learn so much from our children that makes
Yes.
us look at ourselves as well. So, and I don't want to kind of get too far ahead of ourselves, but I want to start there. Like, how did you, and what is also because with support, there is that spiritual space, to
Mm-hmm.
hold. And so
Right.
I'm really curious about what support looks like for you, what support looks like for your son, and the spiritual aspect. And now that you're working with others as well, and you're welcome to break that question down into bite-sized pieces for yourself, which I know is necessary. But yeah, so like, let's just start with that.
Okay. Well, was it like what is that? What did I get? Oh, okay. Um, I was like, I don't know. It was like
Very
on
good.
my side, I guess. Um, what it basically, I mean, with me, I think that support is so important. And I think that's just having people. There's so many, like, I always look at my son. I go back to when he was younger and people and me raising him. And just like on that level first, because that's basically before I even knew I had it. It was me, and we go. I mean, literally, we go to families, and I have people just like literally. I mean, I literally had an own family member tell me, I was like, "What? You don't know how to parent your child?" He was being at a family function. When I tell you, running, knocking over, he like knocked over like a glass of milk or coffee or something like 2 times. And I'm like, you know what? Like this kid, like you can't stay here. I mean, like literally, I was almost in tears. And this was happened to be not even my family. This was my ex husband's family, and he wasn't even there yet. And this is probably part of the reason why I got divorced, because he never ever would stand up for me. He never even like just say, "Oh, I told you the kid, he doesn't listen," and you take but and that was a good point. And this is what I saw all the time. I mean, to the point of going in stores and even strangers looking, because he'd be like, I didn't want to yell at him. I get frustrated, but I'm like, what's the matter? Like, why are you acting like that? And I just, from that moment, I said to myself, I actually found a coach, somebody that I met that through somebody else. Turned out she was a parent coach. And I talked to her and I worked with her a little bit, and she was really, really good. It was probably the best thing in life that I've ever did, because she made me see that number one, I was believing it's totally my fault and everything, like totally. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's not your child's fault. You know, the negativity. I mean, ADHD kids and hear more negative things from people than positive. I mean, the negative is like that's there, and they don't. And she made me understand what I had to do, and to make, I started like reading up on different books that got me through, that helped me understand it. And then like, I started like educating myself more on what's out there. And when I started doing this, it wasn't even out there as much as it is now. And not everything is out there now, but it's more now than it was. Like then it still wasn't. I think I'm getting more stuff, more knowledge now than I was when he was young, because there's more out there. But I started to see, you know what, if I had such a struggle, that there's got to be so many moms out there and so many people with ADHD raising kids. And I just started kind of looking out into schools and just like asking people, when I meet people like in different special needs situations, and where they had special needs kids, and what it's like. And people were telling me, yes, it's very frustrating. And I would always get that they're always frustrated, that they don't know how to help their child. And I guess from listening to it made me think that there needs to be more support. And I immediately thought of like a group, and I was actually just going to do an in-person group, and what hit? COVID. So much for that. That literally when I was going to start it, I was like, okay, well, that's not happening now. I actually had something all set to go, and then the COVID hit, so that had to be. So I figured doing something on Facebook and just kind of creating it where it's a place where parents can go and just be supported by other parents who are in the same situation. And not like, because sometimes you can have your friend or if they don't understand, if they don't have a special needs child or they don't have it in their life, they're not going to get it. And I saw that. I mean, to this day, I mean, my mother still doesn't get it. I mean, I still get like, like when, oh, what's the matter with you? Like, why can't you remember that? I get, and she yells at my son, and he's 20, and just, she doesn't get it. and I can't, I can't make it. That's my biggest probably thing, is trying to make somebody understand when they just don't, you know.
Yes, that's just makes me think and smile here, because I've posted a picture earlier today on our group about the challenges which parents of kids with special needs face. And there is
Right.
this thing about charity not having money, the support organizations asking us to fill an additional form, or the doctors asking us to make additional observations, and the family members say, and what's their problem? So it's kind of what you are saying is so accurate in many people's experience, that the family very often fails to notice that there is a challenge, and we get to blamed as parents for the behavior of children, which can be seen as naughty or out of order, rather than triggered by their challenges. So that support group you set up is absolutely amazing, and I'm using one. I'm sure Deborah is using some.
my
Mhm.
my support is just people in my life. It seems that birds of a feather flock together, and so whenever we were experiencing what we were experiencing, people just, and I think this is the like attracts like,
Right.
there were people in my life that I had no idea had homeschooled children, had special need, kids with, mental health challenges. And it was not until I kind of was just like, this is this is what I'm going through. And I kind of just, barfed out one day because I had it really just up to here, and not with my child, but with people. Exactly what you're saying, Andrea, exactly what you're saying, Monica, which is, people saying, in my case, oh, well, he's just faking. He's just, this is the biggest one, defiant.
Mhm.
But for somebody that does know the behaviors and does know, what the cycles look like, it's, when and I think that's one of the things too, is it takes time and patience. And so whenever you have people around you, whether it's online or personally, that you can just call and be like, this is what's happening right now. And they can listen, and they can just say, that sucks. I've been there. That sucks. You'll get through it. That it's like those three pieces of, Monica, you had sent me the picture of the person down the hole, that,
Yes.
and then I had heard it as someone down a well and they're calling for help, and someone jumps down into the well with them, and they're like, what are you doing now? We're both in the well. And the guy's like, I've been in this well before. That is and it's like, it makes me really emotional thinking about it, because now being a
Gives me the
support,
chills.
yeah, it
It
just,
does.
to be able to say, I've been there, I made it through. I don't know what the future looks like, but right now I'm stable enough to be able to reach a hand out to somebody else and say, you can do it too. Like, you can at least get through this minute, this hour, this day. And that is everything. It's everything to somebody that is sitting in the dark, when someone shows up with like the tiniest candle and is like, what can I do for you? How can I help?
Yes,
Exactly.
absolutely. And it is so touching, Deborah. I feel that too, as I can only go back to 4 years ago, when I was starting the process of assessing myself, and it was a dark hole, because I didn't know what the journey would be. Now I'm so much more equipped with the experience, knowledge, and I remember those moms who were saying exactly that thing. You get through, just push through, and and I've been there, or I've had similar experience, or I had the same experience. Probably no one had the same experience, because we are kind of unique, but But similarities and sort of directing as well. Like Andrea, you said about the coach lady,
Mhm.
who obviously was a professional. I was lucky to have a professional who appeared
Oh,
in my life out of the blue,
well, that's
and
what same thing. That she came
yeah,
literally. I wasn't looking for one. It just came through somebody. I was out, and there was a friend, and we're just talking. I was like, "Oh my God!" Like God just dropped her there, like in front of me. You know,
yes,
like this is probably similar to like you're saying, just like you weren't after it, but it came. But she just made me like see in myself, and made me just kind of got that. You know what? You didn't do anything wrong. You know what?
oh,
You're not you, and made me because that was my biggest thing around me because I was fighting with people like that. People would just just think, oh well, you're like not a good parent. You don't know how to parent your child. He just you just let him do this. I mean, his own father would do that to me, and he
yeah.
didn't. It's like
That shame, that blame, that guilt is that's I don't even want to go back in memory on my memory lane there, but it's
hmm
part of the journey, absolutely, and it's a tough one. But therefore, I mean, I feel so sort of, in, I feel impressed with what Andrea has done, starting the support group. I really am impressed with Deborah's work as you are contributing, so giving that positive contribution back to those who need your support and your help and your experience. And I know myself, if I am in a presence of a parent who faces challenges, similar or not, um, because it kind of becomes very clear to me that when we have faced certain challenges, we are so much more equipped to face another
hmm
set of challenges. It's almost like building that challenge muscle. So, like now we've got another challenge, which is COVID-19, and then everything is very
hmm
different, and it's a
yeah,
different
with the
possibility.
homeschooling, yeah.
Yes, so people would look up to you, ladies, maybe me, and say, "Well, you've been there. You've been in that dark hole. So now there is a different dark hole, but surely you can come out of it." Would you
Right.
say so? Is that sort of valid in your how you feel about tackling challenges in life?
Yes, definitely. I mean, it's like a challenge after challenge. There's always going to be a challenge. I remember something a coach would she said to me when I was going with my child and I was talking. She said the biggest thing, the first thing she said, well, Shelby, is you have to believe in your child, and you have to, no matter what, because you first before you even do that, you have to accept when you first get that diagnosis, because people like you don't. I think it goes back when I think about what she said, that is because I think from that moment that we're pregnant, I mean literally not even when they're born, when they're pregnant, when they're in utero, I mean we start, especially our first child too, or any, we start to have a plan for the future. Like we start to think of what this child's gonna be like, and that this, and then they are born and they're everything. We hold them, they need us, and then as they grow and they're different than what we imagined, and we can't understand why, but we get it. Well, we have to understand, like you get that diagnosis, you have to accept it, that this doesn't define my child. This is not just because this is them, this is how their brain works, it doesn't define them. It doesn't define who they are, that they're amazing kids, and they can, that they just work a little differently than another kid who doesn't. And that was the biggest thing that I remember her instilling in me.
Well, I think that what you just said is important because and this also moves out to other types of special needs, right? Like somebody that has a physical special need, a mental health special need, even later in life, like a substance special need, substance use special need. That everybody has their challenges, and some days are better than others. You make it through. But also there's something else I wanted to say around that, which is recognizing that the differently ordered brain it's special in itself, because like one of the things that I found was I got to learn how to work with my brain. And some days are better than others. There's certain things that can really trip me. And I know what they are. Some of them are avoidable, some of them aren't. But really, I think mindfulness plays such an important role here, because when I'm not being mindful of, we've talked about this before, Monica and I, about environment, or even just the types of, and some days environment doesn't play as big a role as other days. And so like, especially for an ADHD child and adult, like this is not just about children, because we're both adults diagnosed with ADHD as well.
Exactly.
And that's what I wanted to ask you was, as an ADHD parent and adult, how do you do things differently for yourself? And when it relates to your child, do you understand the question that I'm asking? Like, what are the things that you have to do for yourself and possibly also for your child, or had to, because I think your child's older now.
But, yeah, my child, he's 20. And what I would say, like, for me, I have to work on making, like, because like I said, I could literally forget things like, oh my God, I have to, and I know, I'm learning now, like you just said, which makes sense, my brain. And I'm learning little by little now how it works and how much, like, I have to break, if I have to do something, I have to literally break it down in small chunks and literally take breaks.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to walk away. Like, if I have to, like, if I just say, okay, I need to do this, it's going to take me 20 minutes, say, but I got to do it. And then I have to, like, set myself a timer so I know, because otherwise I will get off base and literally start doing something else in the middle of that. I was like, wait, what am I doing? I'm supposed to be finishing. Why am I going here? So if I don't, I have to keep myself like on. And I see that. I even see that with my son now. And it's really hard because he's not like, he's like, Ma, like I get like this online with school now. He's, because he's in college and this online is really hard for him.
Yeah.
And it's like he actually, Ma, I don't know, I want to take a break. I said, listen, finish. He's gonna finish. He finished it now, but now he wants to just work and he wants to just take a break. I said, that's fine. And you need to take a break from school, get yourself, because it's a struggle. Like he'll like I'll watch him. Sometimes I'll come in the room. I said, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm on school. I said, okay, but you're over there on your phone on YouTube. But she's talking typical. And I'm saying, yeah, but but I'm not understanding it. But like, I'm trying to like, that's where he falls. And then he's like, but it's so hard. I can't do this. I was better in the classroom, because his mind, he'll just leave it there. And then when he'll say, oh, I got a call, all of a sudden he has to participate. He'll put it on, like he'll take it off mute, and then he'll like start. But then he's like, again, when she's talking, he'll have it on like he's in the class, but he's totally doing something else.
Well, I will. One thing that I'll tell you, and maybe just as a support for you, is, and we've kind of talked about this before, which is sometimes you can take in information better, especially with a special brain. a differently wired brain, is, doing something else. He might be taking it in auditorily, but it doesn't look like it. And
Exactly.
that's one of the things, in the classes that I teach. I tell my participants, you know what, just, you can draw the whole entire class. I will not ask questions if you feel comfortable, if that's what you need. And
Right.
I do, I teach auditorily, experientially, and visually. So
Really?
I'm hitting a few different ways that people might be learning, and kind of overlapping them. So one of the things about that is that you don't know if it's working until someone takes a test, right? But like with your son. So I'm interested, with your son, does he test well? Like,
He doesn't. I mean, I look like he doesn't seem to test that totally bad, but like I know, like he'll pass it, like where he's getting like he'll take a test and he's getting maybe a 70 or 75 when it totally looks like he's not doing anything.
So I just,
And he's also missed because like he'll oversleep and he'll forget to get on the class.
No, I get that too. But one of the things that, and this is for you and everybody, I have found that the ADHD brain is usually working on a few different things at a time. And
Right.
so school, even though it's a priority for society and us as parents,
Right.
for the ADHD brain, sometimes it's like, not that big a deal because I'm working on this other thing. And so one of the things that comes to my mind is whenever being in like conferences or a place where someone's talking like blah, 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 to me, that's kind of what I'm hearing. But there's that other track that is working in my mind on something completely different. And so I will usually be taking notes and people will be like, oh man, she's taking notes. I'm writing a whole other course, or I'm working on something completely different. And so that is
I
the
do
gift.
that.
It is. It's
I
the
do
gift
that.
and the curse of the ADHD
And
brain.
I didn't even think about what that was, but now that I'm hearing you say that, I do that.
Yeah.
And I'll do that like right now too. I'm going through like actually a coaching program of my own, and I'm taking online, and it's weird because they're online but they're pre-recorded, so it's like but I'm doing it, and then I start as I'm listening. I start in the middle of it going up, ooh, and then I start to see me and I start to like draw and write down. But I'm still kind of listening, but at the same time, what I'm writing down, I'm like maybe ahead of them, or do
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like,
I do. But I think that this goes back to the special needs and spirituality, because it doesn't seem like the ADHD mind can do more than one thing at a time, but
right.
in actuality, that's where we live best. And so I remember having that happen for me. I was in a waiting room waiting to go into a session with someone, and I was reading, and they had it was actually chanting that was playing quietly in the waiting room. And
Right.
when those two things happen together, a whole, like, it opens something in my mind. And so like that's where you see kids that want to study but have the music blaring loud. That is
Yeah.
I will tell you, the best way for me, I have to ask whenever my son was in school, how are you doing? What, do you feel like you're getting information? Do you feel like you're retaining it? He would do things completely differently than I would. But then when I compared us, not compared, that's not the right word. When I would hold his way of doing things up next to mine, I would be like, oh, he's just doing it his way. This is how I do it. But then this is how he does it, and it's different, and it's okay. And so that is the kind of thing that I have seen play so much better later on in life. And one of the things I want to say about anyone with a different brain track, right? Like or physical track, we're just doing things differently, and it might not be what other people look at and see and say like, oh, well, that's the way that you do it. We're just doing it differently. And so that, I think that's an important, I have learned so much about myself by watching my son and saying, why is he doing it like that? And then being like, oh, wait a minute. I do that too, but I do it like this.
Yes.
And so I think there's so much to learn. Go ahead.
I see that really, that, you know what, that really makes me think of it. You know, I just like you'd be surprised when you watch somebody else and you, like you said, you think that, but when you put it into, you're like, wait, yeah, I do that. You know what, comes to mention it now, I do see things. My daughter, who is older, she's 24. She's got anxiety, mild depression, and PTSD from a trauma when she was 14. So, and her anxiety is really what really stems a lot. But I look at her and I see, I'm like, I don't understand why she is like that. She is so like unorganized, but she's organized where she actually works with a child who has special needs. She just fell into that, and she works on one-on-one. And it's so funny because she'll plan, she has a book wall, she gets all sheets, everything's organized. But everything else, you walk into, she got her own apartment like a year ago, not too far from me. And I'm like, she's all. I come over there, she's everything. I mean, she keeps everything. But then I'm like, why is she like that? But then I look at it, you know what? She's like that in these ways, but in a lot of ways I am too.
Yeah.
But there's differences. The way. Yeah, she'll want to hold on. She takes pictures of everything before she throws it away. But she, like everything, she doesn't want to get rid of. She literally, like, she keeps, and she knows, and she doesn't want to be like this. But it's like crazy. But then when I think about it, I say to myself, she has all this. But in a sense, I'll do that too, because when I'm cleaning out something, I'll come to a notebook and I'm like, oh, these are old. Like, when did I ever use this? So I get rid of it. But I'm like, oh, I don't know when I'm going to need it, and I'll put it to the side. And then before I knew it, I'm doing that to everything. So I kind of see myself in her in a little bit of different way.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It will. I think that creates the opportunity for, again, not just the special needs piece, but other people as well, because there's always overlap. You know, there's always like, and that's one of the things I feel that, especially doing these lives, is like just having the conversation and like other people, like in the comments right now, like saying, oh, thinking about brains are just differently wired. Yes, that is being able to watch us all talk and say, oh, okay, now I'm going to think about my brain and how and sometimes it's the things that bug us the most that when we can accept and say, oh, okay, let me work with that. That's the greatest asset. That's where that's where the good stuff is. But we spend so much time saying, well, we have to do it this way, or there's a certain way, the path looks like this. You throw that all out when you're special needs, or when you're special needs with a child with special needs, or just have a child with special needs. Like, all the playbook goes out the window. And that's where the support, I really do feel, comes in. Monica, are you back with us?
I agree. Yeah, there she's back.
I think she's been kind of going in and out a little bit.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah, I noticed that. She's been like, yeah.
There's been a couple of times where I'm like, hey, I want Monica to join, like pipe in, but maybe there's something going on with the connection. But so something that you said that I found interesting was looking at two different children, because And I talk about my son a lot only because his was so, and I can't say, honestly, I can't say his was more than my daughter's, because she was diagnosed with ADD in middle school, late elementary school. And the woman that diagnosed her said, I don't know how this child does it. Like,
Right.
in all honesty, I don't know how she is able to sit in a class. She said she was ADD to the max, like spiked. And she had anxiety. She had school related anxiety, which, I mean, she wasn't not able to go to school, but she spent a lot of time in the nurse's office. The nurse would give her peppermints, and it
My
would just
daughter
be
too.
a break time.
My daughter too.
So,
That
and
was my daughter. A lot of time in the nurses. Oh my God.
yeah,
Just because, oh my God, like getting in that and just not feeling well. And I mean,
stomach ache.
just, hmm
So one thing that I know about my daughter is she takes on other people's emotions, and going from being in a home to being in a school with 800 kids, that's a lot of emotion. And I learned that about her. That's when I actually went. Joyce, who was on one of our last shows, that's how I met Joyce, was because I looked for a Reiki practitioner to work with my daughter, and that's how I found Joyce. But yeah,
really,
and Reiki really helped her a lot. So I think there's some of those extra things that we can look at that we think is just for adults. But I mean, in actuality, that helped my daughter when she was in kindergarten.
really.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I've been looking into that lately about the Reiki. Yeah, really interesting.
Yeah. And I became a Reiki master after that. I use that in a lot of my work, but I never even think about Reiki because it's just such a big part of, but she learned a lot of self-calming techniques from that helped her. I mean, she's a whole other discussion, and she's an amazing person, just like my son is. And they're both working with their brains the way that they know how to.
Exactly. That's yeah, and that's all we can. It's like you said, everybody's brain is wired differently. It doesn't. We're all different. That's why I say like, you can have 10 people with ADHD, kids or adults, and those 10 people are all going to be different.
Yeah.
Because ADHD doesn't look the same in everybody. It looks totally different. It's because everybody experience is different because our brains are different. And what worked for me is not going to work for my daughter. Say it's going to work differently for her versus my son. What works for me, his way is going to be a totally different way. Like, because even he looks at me and why do you do that? And then but if he looks, he's totally different, but he may get the same results as me, but how he did it is a totally different thing.
Yeah. That I think that comes back very much to support. And whenever someone says, like when I'm talking in a class and someone doesn't, they're in there for a completely different reason, and I tell them about my stuff, my quirks, and they'll be like, I do that, and sometimes people will be like, oh, well, you can't be autistic, because I'm diagnosed with autism as well, and they say, well, my child is autistic, but they do this, and instead of me saying, oh, I can't be autistic, I say, oh, what does their autism look like? Because it opening up and having that support and having that conversation, not of, well, it can't be this, the end, but just, oh, what, what does Monica, like, what does the autism look like for her? How does it present, in her family? How does it present in my family? And what are the tools? I think that's the important piece of support, because then you can say, well, these are the tools that work for me. These are the tools that work for this other person. And then you can say, oh, well, this works for me. That doesn't work for me at all. But you're using that muscle again. You're saying, okay, this works. I'll take this. Doesn't work. Just going through and hearing what works for other people. Monica,
Right.
you're blinking now. So are you with us again?
Are you here?
I wonder if she's on a delay. So, oh, okay. So now she's talking to us through the comments. Very smart.
Oh, okay.
Can you bring up the color communication you spoke of last week and say more about it if you have time? Yes. And so the color communication that I had spoken with a group with children with autism was using paint chips to identify colors as emotions for nonverbal. So,
Right.
so being able to associate an emotion with a color, to be able to use that color to and it you just keep them very simply on a little almost like a keychain.
Like a
And
little,
so
yeah, like, oh, yeah, you get those little paint chips, like you can get them like in the paint store and stuff. Those little paint chips, you could actually poke the hole and
yep.
then put like a little. That's a very interesting thing with the color, because that's something like I always talk about emotion cards and even making your own. You don't even have to buy them. They sell them Amazon and everything. But you can do like a little emotion card which has like the emotion, and it will almost like it shows you like an emotion face or what you would look like in different happy. But that with the color, I mean, that's really interesting. Like you can kind of associate it with a color.
Yeah. So I Monica, although we can't hear you, I do know by looking at the time that it's I want to talk about that more. We can talk about it in another in another live for sure, because that's come up
Yeah.
a couple of different times. And I like talking about communicating with non-verbal.
Verbal. Yes.
So but I know that our live is about to be over. So Andrea, I want to thank you so much for joining us and just giving us your perspective, your point of view, your I would like to know, how can people reach out to you?
Well, they can go. I have my pay. I have. They can. I'm on Facebook. Myself, Andrea Milioti, and I have a page that's Mama's Care Experts.
Okay.
It's a Facebook
Yeah.
page, and then from there they can go and get to the group, which is Super Moms Raising Challenging Kids. That's the name of the Facebook group. I wanted something that kind of didn't limit like to moms raising kids with autism on the spectrum, ADHD. I wanted to
Andrea,
know that it's
we can
all.
put that name in the comments.
And then yeah, they can definitely, they can email me, Andrea at mamascareexperts.com. And yeah, definitely go to that page, and definitely the group is, that's the point, of trying to grow that group and get more of exposure there, because I changed it. I had it a couple of different names, and then I finally ended because I was looking for a name that would just suit everybody, and just that came to me, Super Moms Raising Challenging Kids, because I think that that's what we are.
Awesome.
Right?
Amazing. Ladies, thank you
Awesome.
so much
So,
for today. Thank you for
thank
all
you guys. Thank you. We like that. Everybody know. The internet is crazy.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys. Bye. Yes, hold on.